Going to do a video of a video I made years ago with my friend Brooke here. Um, and she's demonstrating an exercise I've called the W exercise, uh, otherwise known as a partial squat. It's not like I invented this, certainly I did not. But it's one of my favorite exercises for two reasons, especially if you are an athlete or interested in Olympic style weightlifting potentially. It also can be beneficial for those of you looking to gain leg mass, otherwise known as hypertrophy. Part of the reason is, because of the amount of time under tension that the exercise implores. When we talk about building mass, muscle hypertrophy, some of the potential metabolic trapping that could occur because of the compressed position that's held a little bit longer, and just the sheer amount of volume that's going to be accomplished by doing a partial in the midst of a full rep. On the other side, and another side being more power related and moving fast, and I'll talk about this as Brooke moves, as you execute the squat, the speed in which you execute the transition, especially from the bottom position, can be very beneficial for an athlete. So essentially eccentrically loading the exercise and then coming out of it, and they have to be careful with that, which we'll talk about. And then the braking that could happen at the midpoint of the exercise. So let's start to look at this exercise here. We'll let Brooke squat, and I'll show the exercise in its entirety. Now she's doing it nice and slow here, and here's the transition. So how far do you come up on the partial? You can change that, of course. I like halfway up, because it usually is, not for everybody, but usually is the sticking point. And so, halfway up will be that spot where you're going to stop and break and pull down, and then re-execute the squat. So let's watch the tire. She's going to go in full depth, come halfway up, stop, and then move back down and come up quickly. Okay, so in a more hypertrophy type of setting, you can move at the pace she's executing this at. More of a smooth transition from the up to the halfway position. Okay, so smooth here, and you go a little bit faster, but halfway up and then down and then back out. Okay, so basically what you've done is a partial rep, so that could be like 1.5 reps per rep. So if you did, 12, that's a lot of repetitions in that partial position. So why not just do full repetitions? I would not argue that full repetitions are better. As a bottom line, this is a good idea. If we're just going to pick one thing, this is where the W squat can be handy. That's like, why don't we just do full squats? That's a great argument, because the more advanced you are, and I wouldn't advocate this for beginners. Okay, the more advanced you are, you may need more stimulus in this particular range of motion. And the reason I like the partial at the bottom is that's where we're at a greatest mechanical disadvantage. And so the muscle's at its greatest stretch position. And by coming up and then going back down and re-stretching the muscle, you can potentially create, and I say potentially, okay, create more eccentric muscle damage. Okay, so couple that with more time under tension in that stretched position in the range of motion, and then just the total volume that's going to be incurred by doing, even 8 reps. You got to figure you're doing 1.5 reps roughly per in that bottom position. You're doing 2 reps per rep, right? Just from that bottom to halfway up. You're going to incur a lot of fatigue that you have to be careful to manage, but you can also incur a lot of muscle damage that, even if it's not a soreness, manifested soreness, it's going to help grow legs in that stretched position. Now, I'm making some opinions here, and so I don't have necessarily empirical evidence to back this up, so take it for what it's worth. But on the surface, a lot of things seem great, but I've used this before, and it does a nice job of building leg mass. Now, would a full rep do the same thing? You could argue maybe so, but as we rise from that full squat position, we gain more mechanical advantage. And so being in that position where our muscles are stretched more, I think, meaning you can decide if I'm full of crap or not, that is a better, to re-emphasize that lower position and re-stretch the muscles and stay in that range of motion where they're weaker, they don't have as great a mechanical advantage, could be a nice stimulus. I'm not advocating doing what I call W squats all the time. I'm just saying this could be something you do for a 2-week stretch, perhaps, if you want to bolster some muscle hypertrophy, or at least have some variety in your training, and you'll probably find that you gain a little bit more soreness in doing this because, again, just could be the extra volume. But the re-stretching is a big deal in staying in that lower position. Again, we could talk about metabolite trapping and maybe some of the stimulus that results from that as well. The pump is much greater when you do this, and again, that just could be time under tension as well. So I don't want to overstate the benefit of this exercise, but I do think it has value as a nice variety piece. Full range of motion, especially for beginners, is a great idea. Full range of motion, smoothly done, is a great idea for most people. This is just an alternate that you could throw in for a couple weeks as an option. Now, the value it has for sport specificity, I think, is a little bit higher. And so, staying in this range of motion down here where you're going in that half squat position and then coming up halfway, and if Brooke did this with speed in mind, she would come down under control, come up rapidly and brake and slam on the brakes halfway up. Now, the loads we're talking about here, by the way, are not 90%, of course. You won't be able to do this. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be really good. We're talking about loads that are 50, 60, 70% of max. Okay, so this is more like a speed day if we're using it for sports performance. The emphasis is speed. Use the word speed. Say velocity. Think fast. That's what we're interested in. You could put chains on this as well if you wanted to, as long as you can move fast. The proper chain setup. You're not swinging the chains all over the place. Okay, and then back out of the hole here. Okay, so again, bouncing up, braking, pulling down. Now, this is where you have to be careful. If you pull down too much, you're going to really expose your knees to some horrible things. So when I say pull down, I don't mean pull down out of control. I just mean reverse directions. Okay? I don't mean come up and then death drop into the bottom and, destroy your knees. Okay? What I am saying is hit that top position, come down with, with the idea is that transition is sharp. It's up, down. Okay, and the down again, as you near the closer to the bottom, you are still stable and under control. So this is not for a beginner either. This is for somebody looking to work on some speed. This is a exercise done later. And again, I wouldn't advocate doing this for more than 3 weeks if you're looking at it from more of a speed perspective. Okay, and then reverse though at the bottom. So you come up halfway up, boom, pull down, and you start to maintain control. You're not death dropping. You're starting to even slow the barbell. Not maybe, you are slowing the barbell down because you're under control. As you hit depth, now you quickly reverse from down to up again. So that's another change of direction, and you finish all the way through the range of motion. Rate of force development. Okay, this pattern can be extremely beneficial for speed development. It can be beneficial for a weightlifter. Part of weightlifting is getting under the bar quickly. All right, and so we can do things that promote hip flexor explosiveness, like a tuck jump perhaps, or a high box jump where you have to tuck quickly. But this is another opportunity where you can work on rapid flexion. So we talk about triple extension, which is really 2 extensions and 1 flexion, but triple extension a lot of times we don't. A lot of times we overlook that there's also a benefit to rapid triple flexion. And that would be at the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here is rapid triple flexion. So, you can do a snatch bounce, does something very similar. I'm not saying this should replace it. I'm just giving you an exercise option I think has value. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be able to maintain control throughout, though. I want to make sure I say this one more time. I'm not advocating being out of control as you move from position or height of the squat to ascending to descending. I'm not advocating that, and I'm certainly exercising some caution when I say coming up from the bottom. If you're familiar with Olympic weightlifting, you might even bounce a little bit, but if you're not, don't bounce. Okay, it's not a depth drop. It's just come up smooth. Okay, quickly change direction, regain control before you hit the bottom, and then quickly change direction. Again, lighter loads. You may only do 3 rounds or 3 reps, max 5. The loads are lighter, a lot of rest period. In terms of total repetitions, 5 by 5 will be pushing it. And how do you know when you're pushing it? You might be able to do more, you might have to do less. The velocity of the barbell. And so if you don't have a barbell measuring device, and it's really the last up that you're interested in measuring, if you don't have a barbell measuring device, then you're going to have to go by feel perhaps. But I think for most of us that have lifted for a while, when the bar is starting to slow down. You're not giving it your 100% effort anymore, or you are, and the bar is not moving like it was that first set. Okay, so exercise caution. This is just an alternative for both hypertrophy And I'm not saying that a full range of motion squat isn't better. I'm just saying this is a variety piece where you could exercise the muscles in a disadvantaged position a little bit longer mid-rep, okay, and get a bigger pump. Fatigue is going to be higher though. You have to weigh the cost, whether this is worth it. Okay? And then in terms of performance, I think it has even more value if executed properly with lighter loads and emphasizing the speed of movement and hitting the transitions very, very quickly. So I'll run this one more time. Down, up halfway, pull down, up to finish as fast as possible. That is what I call W squat. Some people call them partial squats. You can do multiple partials. You can do multiple W's, or before, or multiple partials before you come up. I call it a W because you come down, halfway up, down, and up again. It looks like a W. Okay. All right. Hope you found this valuable. Give it a shot in your training. Again, it's not better than anything. It's just another tool to use. I am a full range of motion promoter. I think it's the right way to train most of the time. This is just an accessory exercise that you could incorporate either as an alternative hypertrophy day or as a speed day in your squat work.